And happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, we're back.
Good evening.
Hello.
The goodest of evenings, because not only are we back, what that means, the Hawkscast podcast is back. That means Seahawks are coming back. That means we've got the off season, we've got the draft. There are so many things to talk about. We'll try and squeeze it in this generous hour that we will provide. But, gentlemen, it's great to hear your voices.
Likewise, good to be here.
And I have some very special news I'd like to share with everyone. I got my second COVID shot, so my 5G bars are going to be through the roof.
Nice, you're going to have that good reception.
Yeah, I got that, Bill Gates 5G. It's going to give me the best reception, and we're going to carry it through, and hopefully no side effects impact this podcast. But I'm excited because so much has happened. I feel like this offseason, we have more to talk about than we would have in previous off seasons, and this is year 6 of our podcast, gentlemen.
Can you believe it?
6 years.
5. Wow.
Yeah, this is season 6. So we've got a lot of episodes, a lot of stuff to talk about. But first off, I want to welcome Zeb and Ross back. Obviously, my name is Sam, and we are the Hawkscast podcast, and we don't have a previous game to talk about, and we got a lot of things, but just want to check in with you gentlemen and say I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're back. We do have an announcement about not only is this season 6, but we have a new home for our podcast. So please go check out our new website. It's hawkscast.net. It's going to be posted on our SoundCloud, on our YouTube, on our Twitter, on all the things that we do. But we have a new website, and it's pretty awesome. And
make sure you go to .net, not .com.
Hawkscast.net. It's a cool new website. We've got a really cool forum. We have cool articles that we're going to be writing. And when I say we're going to push Ross to write some articles for us. There's a forum. There's a community of Seahawk fans that are on there. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. So please check it out. But yeah, we return. The off season is here for another week, and then so goes this drama that is this off season. Key starters have been allowed to walk. No one was franchise tagged. Quite a few surprise signings occurred, and even with the 21 salary cap staying the same, I was worried the Seahawks weren't going to do anything. But John and Pete added to the offensive line, to the defensive line, to running backs, to tight end, to corners, all of areas that were of huge concern. This is the Hawkscast podcast, brought to you by the Hawkscast forum at hawkscast.net. Gentlemen, before we jump into anything, is there anything you would like to talk about, Seahawks related, before we jump in?
Are we going to talk about Aldon Smith?
We should, right? I mean, so much has happened.
And were you surprised? And then, what are the odds he plays a game ever in a Seahawks jersey?
I am going to say...
I hope he plays.
I'm going to say he will play. I think, if anything, it'll be a short suspension, maybe 4 games. But I see him playing as a Seahawk this year because he was a get for them. They wanted him last year, and they signed him to a 1-year deal. And if he's playing in rotation, I think he could be pretty good for the Seahawks.
I mean, we don't have many details as to what exactly happened yet, right?
There's some new reports that have come out. Ross, maybe you know this, but apparently he was defending someone.
Yeah.
So there's some video. It's not like Aaron Donald, get out of jail video card that he got, but Tony chiming in on the chat saying there's a tweet from him, and maybe he'll let us know a little bit more. I personally was really happy that we signed him because I thought it was just more bodies for camp, if anything else, a guy that could help with the pass rush. And if he failed, it wasn't a huge cost. So, Ross, what about you? What do you think about Aldon Smith?
It's funny because I'm the dude that's always saying that's I'm preaching forgiveness a lot of times and giving people second chances, and people start their careers when they're still relatively young men and they grow into adults. And so, I I've always wanted to give lots of people new chances. Something about Aldon Smith going way back has always made me feel like it's not just maturity issues. I just feel like that dude's slightly broken. So, because like he wasn't just stopped for like drunk driving and things like that. Like he was like passed out at 4:00 in the morning behind the wheel of your car. That's like a whole other level of drunk driving.
Yeah, car was running, run into a tree.
Right. I mean, it's like you fall asleep while you're driving, you hit a tree, and that still doesn't wake you up. You're drunk. So I don't know. I don't want to be a Pollyanna, but I can't help but reflect. I used to remember. I remember being 12 years old and thinking of the Seahawks as sort of like the good guy team. I mean, it was just probably projection, but I'm not really ever comfortable when there's like, as Mora put it, dirt bags on our team too many, and like that guy just feels off to me. But he's an effective player, and actually, like when he actually finally did sign, I sort of felt like my expectations were a little high because last year he had 5 sacks, and that was his first year playing in 5 years.
5 years.
And so I was thinking like the rust is off, his body's preserved. People say it doesn't matter if age doesn't matter if you weren't playing. It still does. But it doesn't matter. It's a different formula, right? It doesn't have the wear and tear. Kind of was expecting 8 sacks. I expected sort of Bruce Irvin type production out of the dude. And now I don't even know. I don't know if he should play football. I think it might be better for him. For 5 years he wasn't playing football and he stayed clean. He gets back into football and now he's doing stuff again. Maybe he's protecting somebody. I don't know, but like part of the thing of being an NFL player is you just don't even put yourself in that position, right? You just don't put yourself in that position.
I think that's... I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I would say, though, the problem with some of these players is even if they try to keep themselves out of those situations, there are people in this world that will seek out situations to create. And that means that he can become a target. And in this particular case, the initial reports, and Tony, if you're listening, feel free to let us know what that tweet says. But,
give us the tweet.
But the initial report is, from what I've heard, is that it's a second-degree assault because the most recent thing I've seen is that he was protecting someone, and then that's what resulted. And maybe he took it too far, so rather than just like separating people, he engaged, and because he is such a big and strong person, it ended up being worse than maybe initially anticipated. And who knows what was involved, but he did turn himself in. He's out on bail. He alerted the Seahawks. The Seahawks put out a statement. So we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping for the best, but I won't be too disappointed if it ends up being a big issue and he gets cut or he can't play, for a quarter or half the season.
I mean, it's not the end of the world. We've never had Aldon Smith before, so it's not the end of the world if we don't have him now. But
right,
I was definitely looking forward to it. And to me, without knowing much about what happened, because obviously nobody knows much about what happened, it feels like a situation where maybe he was baited into doing something stupid.
Here's the better question. Do you feel more comfortable about this situation with Aldon Smith or more comfortable with what happened with Quinton Dunbar last offseason? I feel more comfortable
with the Bizarro World thing.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That's why I feel like this is a little bit more clear cut, a little bit more straightforward. Quinton Dunbar was like a magical mystery tour of who's what and what happened.
Because I'm pretty sure with Quinton Dunbar, the second wave of rumors correct. I'm pretty sure like he and what's his name did something really wrong, and literally just like we're just going around passing up packets of $10,000.
Right.
I don't know. Because like nothing else, but nothing makes sense. Why would you rob a place and then drive off in your supercars? If you've got $170,000 car, why are you robbing people of $3,000? Like, sell your car, get a Corolla.
Yeah,
I don't I don't. Nothing made sense. Like I'm waiting. I'm too lazy to go look it up. I'm just waiting for it to appear on Netflix.
Okay,
it's
all right, fair enough.
It's gonna be like Netflix, like 1 hour documentary, right? Because Netflix is just desperate for content. Because we're all like, be 12 hours a day because we can't go outside except for Santa.
Well, I'm not totally safe yet. I gotta wait 2 more weeks. So beginning of May, after the draft, I'll be able to lick street signs and, you know, hug people that don't expect it and say, "Don't worry, I'm vaccinated. I'm cool."
Seriously, you could just go around like spitting on people and just be like, "Oh no, it's okay, it's cool, man, it's cool. I'm vaccinated. Don't worry about
Just start
it.
hate
Be
criming
cool,
on
man."
people and saying like it's okay because I'm vaccinated. Yeah.
No, seriously, be cool, man. I'm vaccinated. Here's my card.
Well,
Let me just spit on you.
Speaking of crazy, let's go into topic number 1. And Ross, I know you had super strong feelings about this. We've been talking about it pretty much since the end of the Super Bowl. And topic number 1 is, how close did Russell Wilson PR himself out of Seattle?
He was walking the tightrope there for a while, man. He was really on that. I mean, and I want to define the terms. When I say Russell Wilson, I also mean everybody who's speaking for Russell Wilson, his camp, his agent, whatever. Because like it's not like his agent's out there saying stuff that Russ doesn't agree with, because you know he wouldn't be his agent anymore. So I don't know. Not just. I mean, yeah, he did. I've said it before, but this is a different Russell Wilson, and I'm not really comfortable. He dropped to go Seahawks. This is the first time. Okay, last year he said a couple things that were slightly more aggressive. It was a big deal that he even said I'd like a couple more weapons. And so like they were like, okay, here, Greg Olsen. Okay, I'm not sure that's what he meant, but anyway, this year is the first year that he went so far as to say, I know other people's jobs better than they do. And that's always an awkward position to put yourself in. I don't care. Like, and some people say, no, he didn't really say that, but yes, you did. If you're actually saying you're taking too many sacks and the Seahawks haven't addressed that, that means you think you know John Schneider's job better than him. You know what? Like, yeah, probably, I'm sorry. You know what? Taking too many sacks, that was part of the game plan sometimes. Like, there have been years where the plan is, and you're going to hold the ball too long, and sometimes it's going to be a sack, and sometimes it's going to be a negative play. But what it does is give us more big plays than other teams. We lead the league in 40-yard throws, despite having a run-heavy offense. Like that's how it works. And by the way, Russ, that's what fits your style best. That's what you do better than anybody else. If you think you're going to just be Peyton Manning and simply drop back, you're delusional, because yes, the stats back up that you can be a drop back quarterback, but that's because defenses are still playing you as if you could do those other things. Nobody's perfect. And it makes me really... This year showed a remarkable lack of self-awareness. And if you go back and watch 2012, 2013, 2014 interviews and how Russ talks, it was all about just wanting to win no matter what. He never talked to anybody about anything else except for winning. And now it's all about, like, he wants to win, but he wants to win with the biggest, gaudiest numbers. But you know what? You can't win that way. And I'm disappointed in how dumb he sounds. Because if you're going to do, and I've said this before as well, the Seahawks way of winning is smart because it involves a huge amount of money balling. If you're going to try to win the same way the Chiefs win, and the same way the Raiders win, and the same way everybody else wins, then you're competing for the exact same kind of players. You get Tyler Lockett because Tyler Lockett isn't the player they wanted. You get Metcalf because he was damaged goods. That's super money ball, right? If you're out there competing for the exact same wide receivers everybody else is, and for the exact same left tackle, for the exact same left guard, then you're paying a premium because everybody wants them. If you can get by with a $2 million guard because he's known as a run grader and like run grading is not cool, great. You've just got to, and yes, it means you're going to take a few more sacks, but it also has worked out. And so if you're going to start complaining and telling other people their job's better than them, I think you get yourself in trouble with your teammates. I think you get yourself in a little bit of trouble with the coach. And I think you got some of the public who's going to go, yeah, right. But you're going to have half the public also is going to be like, nah. So I don't know. That's my rant. That's been my TED Talk. Thank you.
All right. Good TED Talk. Zeb, do you think Russell Wilson was close to getting himself out of Seattle?
I don't really know what to believe. I really wish that I could hear or read some behind the scenes of the conversations that were happening between Russell and Pete. because part of me has like this feeling that it was all kind of a bit of a ploy one way or another, and that nothing was ever really going to happen. So I don't. It's hard to know exactly what's factual and what isn't. I won't pretend that there wasn't a part of me that got kind of excited at the idea of drafting Trey Lance or Justin Fields and kind of starting fresh. I've always been a huge fan of Russell, and I've been a Russell defender, but this past season, he kind of started to wear on me, and we need to see, like we talked about this all last season. First half of the year, Russell Wilson is the Russell Wilson we need to be successful. Second half of the season, Russell Wilson is not good enough. He didn't play well enough. So if that's the Russell that he is now, at some point we're going to have to move on. I don't know that that's now. I don't know. I guess we need to see. But I didn't follow the situation super closely because I didn't want to get invested in one side or the other. I kind of wanted to just let it play out and see what happens. And it kind of looks like all is well at this point. So I'm hoping that is, in fact, where we're at.
But here's the question. Is all as well, or is there like a truce? I wonder if it's gotten super quiet because maybe they've said, you know what, we all still want to win this year. So let's just, okay, Russ, we're going to take care of you next year. If you want to leave, you get to leave next year. But this year it's too late. It's not going to happen. So you're a Seahawks this year. Build your resume so you get the best deal for yourself, and that obviously gives us the best deal for us. I think there's a chance that happens.
It's entirely possible that the whole thing has gone sour, and they're just like, look, let's get through this season. Next year we'll figure it out. But
I would almost be on board with thinking the whole thing was overblown from the beginning, except there's one particular fact, and I've talked about this elsewhere. I've written about this elsewhere that makes me think that it was really, really was serious, because on the eve of free agency, and it's been a really active free agent for the Seahawks, on the eve of free agency, John Schneider did a top secret, well, it wasn't that top secret because we're talking about it now. It was meant to be a top secret flight to freaking North Dakota to meet the Bears GM to talk about a Russell Wilson. So it was close enough that they weren't willing to just Zoom it anymore. They weren't willing to talk about it. And they didn't even want to have meet each other in each other's team headquarters. They both secretly flew to North Dakota and met about it for like 2 days. So, right when they're both, maybe the third busiest day of the year, right before the draft, right before opening day, but like a really important time to be in the office. But they both went to North Dakota to talk about it. And I don't think they were ice fishing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at that situation with the Bears, though. I could see that being a situation where the Bears were very desperate to try and make a run for Russell Wilson, because after the quote-unquote trade of Russell Wilson passed, like, people stopped talking about it. The Bears camp, the Bears GM, a lot of people in Bears media will all talked about what the package that the Bears offered to try and get Russell Wilson. It's 3 first-round picks, but we're talking about picks in the 20s, 2 veterans that were...
Once they get Russell Wilson, what are those picks going to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, and I don't discredit the fact that there were definitely tensions. I looked at it as the Seahawks are doing their due diligence, and just like they've done with every other player, they're as honest as they want to be with the media and with the player itself. When Richard Sherman was being talked about, like, hey, people are making offers for you and we're listening, that rubbed Richard Sherman the wrong way, because he was like, no, I want loyalty through and through and through. And he didn't get that. That created a very bad play with Sherman in the front office. But this offseason, whether it's just rhetoric to drive up his signing demands, he said he would welcome a return back to Seattle. And I think that says something. Either that's him growing as an individual or understanding he's at the end of his career and going back to a place where he could find a resurgence, or it's a chance to help increase his stock amongst other teams because they have to compete against Seattle. That's still a move he has to play, And I don't think we would have expected that, how the Sherman-Pete fallout occurred. With Russell Wilson and with Pete, we didn't hear anything out of the front office. Yeah, we heard about John Schneider going and meeting with the Bears GM and talking about a potential trade, and them saying, oh, we offered so much and Seattle just wouldn't budge. But Pete never said anything. Pete was so tight-lipped. I don't think we heard a single thing from Pete about Russell Wilson in the entire offseason. And yet here we are, right before the draft. Unless a blockbuster trade comes out of nowhere, everyone is expecting Russell Wilson. He's saying go Hawks again. That he's going to be the quarterback at least for this 2021 season. Now, in 2022, his cap number is a lot lower if they trade him, which is a huge thing because the cap number that Seattle would incur to trade Russell Wilson this year was huge. That alone made me think that this was just a big kerfuffle over nothing. Just like people trying to present that, hey, I need to be heard. My feelings are important. What I think is important to win needs to be addressed. Like, that's what I took it as. And time will tell. But
the money, everybody talked about the money, but the difference between next year and this year, essentially, if you don't do anything with the deals, is $12 million. And I don't think you do what's bad for $1 billion franchise for over $12 million. It would have hurt a bit, but there's ways of playing with the numbers, right?
That is true. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit with how John and Pete were able to make all of these transactions. But going into this particular offseason, they were like 20th in cap space. So if they traded away Russell Wilson, that would have been a huge hole to dig out of. It's not impossible, but it's still a huge hole. They really would have needed like a top flight draft pick to secure a quarterback.
If Alex Magoo hadn't been in that fight over St. Patty's Day, I assume we'd do the trade because Alex Magoo could have just
yeah, potentially.
Fight, so we don't know if he's going to be eligible this year or what's going to happen with him. So that probably just messed up everything. Yep. One St. Patty's Day fight and you're out. Although I've said this as well, but if your last name is Magoo, you should be allowed to fight on St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. Right? And if you're going to fight, I think St. Patty's Day is the day to do it.
I think they give you T-shirts say like, "I'm Irish, expect to fight today."
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, like, I had an Irish friend here in Tokyo, and we went out every year for St. Patty's Day for years, and it never ended till he had a black eye.
Let me ask you guys a quick question. Leading up to the draft or even draft day, the Jets give us their 2 1s and a third for Russell. Do you take it?
No.
Yeah, but I shouldn't. But I think somewhat similar to Zep. I'm so excited by the idea of just starting over again.
Like, see, you guys are falling into that trap. You're falling into the trap of thinking, you know what? We could be better. So let's take a risk. We've already seen success. We've already tasted a Super Bowl.
It's not that. You know what it is? I think I'm ahead of everybody else in thinking that I think that Russell Wilson's already regressing. I think he's already at the age where he's not. I don't think like last year was just like other defenses caught on. Like, I don't think Russ is Russ anymore. Like, I think he's still really, really good. Don't get me wrong. And everybody keeps talking how he's going to play till he's 45. And I'm like, I see signs here and there that I don't think he's 2020, even 2019 Russell already. So like, I'm ready to bail on him while you're going to get premium price, because if you think it's going to be the same, because again, the numbers I'll show. Remember we talked about this a couple years ago. He can be a drop back passer, but when he was dropping back 3 years ago when he had to, purely being for that one season he was semi-injured and he was being a purely drop back passer. Defenses will still having to respect the things that they won't necessarily have to respect later. So
True.
It's how he was played. I don't know that he can actually be. I'm not saying he's not good. There's more than way to be a successful person in the NFL,
right?
Obviously, or a cool quarterback. I'm not, and like Austin is out there probably like
Davis
loading up a gun to shoot me, but I just don't. I think every quarterback does have limits. If you try to play Peyton Manning in certain systems, it wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
I just think that Russell's has some limitations, and as he ages, those limitations are going to show up more. And dude, he gets a little chubby in the offseason already now. So,
dude, Matt Stafford went for 2 number ones. I mean,
true.
Russell Wilson's value as a quarterback, while maybe he's diminished because he had a bad second half of the year, I still think the book is out to say whether or not we can confirm those. But I think that leads us to topic number 2. So I want to talk about this. Zeb, is Shane Wauldron the answer at OC? Does he have the right pieces? So just to confirm, the Seahawks still have question marks about who their third wide receiver is. It's either Usua, Freddie Swain, or someone we don't know about. They added Gerald Everett to the tight end, so it's Gerald Everett with Will Dissly and whoever else, and the guy from Stanford. They added Gabe Jackson from from Las Vegas Raiders for a 5th-round pick, which dropped us from 4 to 3 picks. They re-signed Ethan Posick, our starter from last year. He might not even be the starter. They re-signed Chris Carson. Is this enough for Shane Wauldron with Russell Wilson to be a competent offense that you are looking forward to see in 2021?
Let me start by telling you what I know about Shane Wauldron.
Impressive. Very impressive.
So, with that out of the way, I like most of the moves we've made. I think the Everett signing is, I guess, the most exciting, even though it's not that exciting. It's a potential another big target for Russ, so I think that helps a lot. I think they did kind of just like some good, solid, getting people that are good enough that we can be successful with to come in, and I not a lot of splash, but a lot of spackle, making sure that everything's shored up nicely. And
so I think up those holes.
Exactly. I think in that sense, I think we did good things. I don't know what Shane Wauldron brings to the table. Honestly, I know nothing about the guy. It makes me wonder a little bit how much Russell's regression is related to Shoddy. I didn't see that coming. So for me, there's question marks there, and I guess in that sense, it'll be exciting to see something new. But I definitely can't say that I'm 100% optimistic about it because I just don't know enough about the guy. But things look okay from where I'm sitting.
He's got a cowboy name,
right?
But, I mean, they went. I don't know. There was something about we signed a guy named Gabe. We signed a guy named Gerald. And we signed a guy named Shane. So if we're going by cool names, we're in trouble.
Yeah, we're going backwards.
Yeah.
Like, we're going way, way back. We've got a very 1970s kind of names thing.
Chris, Tyler.
Yeah. It's like the all dork team if you just want to clearly by name.
Dwayne.
Right?
I mean,
like
the coolest name is probably Damien, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but somebody like legitimately like about 45 years ago looked at their kid and actually went, Shane. He looks like a Shane to me. What? There's no way that.
Well, they probably had a grandfather named Shane, so they just went with it.
It's either that or they went to some sort of like old timers like film festival a week before, and they were just like, "Oh, that was a great movie, Shane."
I mean, nobody just goes, "The kid looks like a Doug." That's it's just not the way it works. It's all decided. It's all planned, man. It's all premeditated, bro.
I feel like Gerald Everett's family missed an opportunity. They could have, like, it's just a little bit off. They could have now named him Mount.
Yeah,
and they're just like Mount Everett, and like the rest of his life, be like Everest, and like no, it's Everett, the guy, Mount Everett.
Hey, at least they didn't call him Chris.
Yeah.
They could have named him South, and then I'd be like, "Hey, man, I grew up there."
Nice. Well, Ross, what about you? Shane Wauldron, he's the former quarterbacks coach over in the LA Rams under Wonder Kid Sean McVay, who hasn't really won anything other than his one Super Bowl appearance. is this a move? Is this a roster that you expect to do well in a Rams style offense?
I don't know how much Ram style it's going to be. I think there's going to be some wrinkles, but there's no OTAs that anybody's actually going to show up to, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next topic.
So you basically get training camp, which is you get like 17 practices, man. So we can't just go in. It's going to be like a hybrid, whatever we got left over, with a few wrinkles. I expect Everett actually to be maybe more important than we're expecting him to be. I think that's the easiest change to make. He knows what Shane wants to do. He knows some of what the playbook from the other places is going to be like, and that'll be mixed in. So I don't know. I don't know. We already have good tools. So no matter what, at the end of the day, you know what? We've got the right athletes. It's all about execution. We've talked about this. I'm not a big blame things or credit things too much to the coordinator sometimes. Sometimes there's obvious wrinkles and things that show up, and you can surprise a team. But even if you've got a dumb play call, if all of your players do their job better than the other guys on the other side of the ball, then you're still going to have a successful play, right?
Hopefully.
As long as it's assuming it's a professional, sound call. So it's all about the players, and we've got really good players. Carson unexpectedly coming back. I didn't expect that. We've got probably the best two wide receivers, in my opinion, on the outside. Don't know who our third is, but I think that's going to be mitigated. I think, like I said, I think the tight end's going to be way more important than it has been up to this point. So it really doesn't matter as much who the wide receiver 3 is. I'm thinking our line, we'll see. I don't know. I think we've got tools. I think Disney's a better weapon than I think some of the times the staff think they are. So
yeah,
I think I don't know. To me, we've got Pro Bowl players at almost every skill position. Metcalf is a Pro Bowl player. Tyler Lockett's a Pro Bowl player. Gerald Everett could be. He's a second-round pick, and he's got the tools. There's a lot of mouths to feed with the Rams offense. Russell Wilson's obviously a Pro Bowl quarterback. Chris Carson's a Pro Bowl running back. So, if you can't succeed, Dwayne Brown is a Pro Bowl level, right? At least.
Yeah.
So if you can't succeed with that, then what are you doing? I don't know. I mean, I said the same thing about the defense last year. On paper, we had 5 Pro Bowlers, but they don't play like it. So maybe the coordinators, maybe I need to really evaluate my philosophy, and maybe the coordinators matter a lot more than I think.
I think that's I think that's an interesting kind of conundrum to be in. If you have the right players, but the calls are shit, do the players can they shine? Can they outshine the shit that you draw them up to do on the field? Right? I think that's a fair question to ask.
I mean, if you ask some people that were around in 2012, 2013, 2014, that's exactly what happened, right? Bevel, Bueller.
I mean,
there's a lot of people that believe that Russell carried Bevel through all that, which I don't think is true, obviously, but obviously people think that it's possible.
Yeah. That's such bullshit. Only Bevel. I've said this so many times. That's one of my pet peeves. Only Bevel could have put together the offense that Russell would have succeeded in. Only Bevel. He built that offense for $1.50.
$1.50 seems generous. I think we went to the sub-dollar store to get our offense.
We had all undrafted wide receivers. We had one drafted 7th round or whatever tight end and 2 undrafted tight ends. We had a 7th and a 5th round running back, 3rd round quarterback, and an offensive line that played defense in college. And Bevel made that. Bevel, second year of Russell Wilson's career. No, sorry, first year. When they put in the run, everybody forgets this, but they put in the read option in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And everybody forgets that. Who else would have been flexible enough to do that and decided to put that in and have it work?
That was the Buffalo and Arizona game back to back where they just said look, we're just going to run this new thing with Russell Wilson and see how it goes. And
Bevel. Everybody's job is fuller than we imagine. There's more facets to it than we think about it. But Bevel was an excellent offensive coordinator. in most facets. He wasn't maybe great in game, as that's what people say about Pete Carroll. So maybe that kind of accumulated. But again, putting together a roster, putting together a philosophy, putting together that you can actually field and do well with the resources that were allocated to you. I don't know how you could have done any better than Bevel. I'm pissed off that people are still sort of like, it should be legendary. People never even like leading up to the Super Bowl didn't talk about it enough. It should have been. We were top 10 offense, and we spent nothing on it.
Right.
Anyway,
it's one of those revisionist histories, and it's how the players get more credit than the coordinators. But in this last year, the questions were, why can't Russell Wilson beat a cover 2? Why aren't they drawing up a play to attack the middle of the field? Why isn't Russell Wilson throwing the ball? Why aren't they running the ball to take advantage of, linebackers and safeties playing deep? Those questions, I don't think were ever answered, nor do I think we will ever find the answer to it. But I think that a lot of fans that have some idea of an offensive structure on how you attack a cover 2 defense, no one saw those questions getting answered. So Shane Wauldron, I think that's the thing that people are going to look at. What kind of offense are we really going to run? If it's going to be 75% of what we saw last year, just maybe a little bit more run and a little bit more, attack the middle of the field with the tight end, I think that could change the entire offense.
That's a huge
enough.
thing. I think it's only one part of the equation, but one of the problems last year was Greg Olsen was brought in to be that middle of the field, run the seam route thing, and he couldn't do it. Nobody respected it. He couldn't run anymore. He didn't play in every game. And so Gerald Everett running those routes instead should open things up, I would think.
We'll see. And, maybe that's Will Dissly, maybe that's Cody Parkinson, but that's what you need a tight end to do in a traditional way of how you attack a cover 2, right?
But Russell also has to look for that. He didn't always look for it.
And maybe it's a thing where Greg Olsen's just too slow to get to that point, so it's like, look, man, you're like my third read. I got to look elsewhere.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
All right, well, let's move on because we talked about it briefly. So we're going to go to topic number 3. This is the Hawkscast Corner. So this is on the forum. Go check it out at hawkscast.net. Ross, did the Seahawks players do the right thing by advocating for a virtual minicamp? So there are places across the United States that are still dealing with the COVID pandemic. Not everyone obviously can get access to a vaccine yet, but a bunch of players are going to be returning to Seahawks in Renton over at the VMAC, and Seahawks are all advocating for a virtual minicamp right now. Is that the right thing to do?
I feel when it comes to OTAs, NFL players tend to revert to sort of like being more like normal employees, like it's a normal company, and like it's just something you don't want to do. And so you could run, if you can run 16 games last year and never have one canceled, you could run OTAs and be safe and whatnot, but I don't think they want to. Like they're like, okay, let's split the difference. I don't think it's the most effective way to do it, but at the same time, if it's voluntary, it's voluntary, and it's always awkward. It's always awkward to tell people like you have to show up to your voluntary activity, and your OTAs. I don't know. I'm an old man. I like face to face. I think you lose a lot as soon as you're not face to face. I'm not a big Zoom guy. But I'm old.
All right. So let me ask you this question in this way: you have played football at a college level. Do you think you could have succeeded? If any, I don't think, any way.
I don't want to talk about that. I want to put it this way: I think that you. It doesn't matter who the player is and what the sport is. I think being in the same room with your coach or the same field as your coach, no matter what, is very, 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 very important, no matter what. And I don't think that just for sports. I think that for almost every activity. Even like computer programming, which would seem to be ideal. I think you have to be in the same room with somebody, because there's just so much unwritten communication. There's so much in body language. There's so much that comes to your mind in your interaction with somebody. Yeah, I just think you have to be there. And I don't like, once you get into Zoom and you don't know a camera angle can being wrong can mean a coach sees you different. A microphone in the wrong place can mean your coach misses you muttering something into your breath that he addresses. I mean, that sounds stupid. And also, I just don't think it translates. I can't just, when you're doing things on Zoom, you can't just turn and say, hey, Bob, you're not getting that right. Can you work for 10 minutes with Jim? You can't do that. All you can do is kind of like, it doesn't work. Everything becomes more tedious. There are certain things. I'm not saying no online communication ever works. I just think that it's less effective. And if you're running a business and you're going to have 5% less effective meetings, but you save 20% on everything else, that's great. But when it's something like professional sports and you're trying to get every single tiny edge, then it's hard.
Zeb, what about you?
Well, let me say, first of all, that I agree with Ross 100% that in-person communication is literally always better than not in-person communication. There's just so much more that you can communicate without words. That even, facial expressions don't do it. Body language is very important. And just hands-on. Hands-on is so much better than hands-off. There's the reason why I don't think it's necessarily that big of a deal is because we're likely all the teams are gonna do something similar now, right?
Yes, most
like
likely.
we're not gonna be at a disadvantage because we're doing.
Some teams have some players showing up.
Okay, so I mean, who knows? Maybe. I feel like
Sorry, one last sort of element to that. I believe I did see that Russell actually is meeting his wide receivers and doing something.
Yeah, he'll do
as is per usual.
Right. So, if you're able to do that, and if you think that's important to do, can you tell me why it's not important to do the OTAs?
They don't want to have to do it. As simple as that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like when it comes to OTAs and other volunteer activities and off-season, players become much more like sort of normal employees. 99% of the time we're talking about how the NFL is not a normal company and you can't apply normal things. But even in the quotes you see and in the attitude they take, it's very, very clear that OTAs are not considered part of the job.
Yeah. They don't want to do it.
It's because it feels more like your boss telling you got to do something and you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a pretty compelling argument to be made that the Seahawks offense quick start last year was in part because of the lack of offseason, and the teams weren't prepared for what the Seahawks came out doing.
The new mid-cap.
Yeah, and just they air it out, but then after a few weeks, after 5, 6, 7 weeks, they adjusted. Everything got back to normal. We got some playing time, and we were pretty easy to figure out at that point. It seems like so.
I feel like one of the things that we all forget is in those last 8 games, outside of one team, everyone was a top 10 defense at the end of the year, like statistically. However we wanted to break down the stat, we played a lot of NFC West teams, but even the NFC East teams, minus, I think the AFC Jets, which is not NFC, that was the only like bad defense. Everyone else had like had a better than average defense. But to the greater question of, is this the right thing to do for the players? To Ross's point, yeah, they're regular employees. They don't want to do the extra work because it's not a requirement. It's something they can kind of opt out of unofficially. But for the performance on the field, I think they will definitely lose out because, like both of you have said, this is what helps them be better. If Russell Wilson is going to hold a mini camp for just his receivers and just all the people that are going to catch the ball from him, they would benefit the same way if they were all there working out together, practicing in person without pads and just going through the motions and understanding that. I don't think you could make a clear argument against that physical presence and that opportunity to work together. But the way that they're approaching it is not so much that, oh, we don't want to come to work because this is voluntary. It's being presented as, we don't think the safety procedures are set well enough to warrant us coming back to our physical work. And that's where I look at it and say, like, I have a hard time disagreeing with that, even if it's not necessarily the most truthful or honest way that they are trying to opt out of this virtual minicamp. Ross, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, like, again, if you're going to go take your receivers down, and, like, I mean, that's totally, I'm happy he does that, and it's become a huge thing. Everybody does that now. Not everybody. Many people do. Many teams have the quarterback organizing that stuff. It's sometimes actually almost a clue of who's got the leadership edge. When you're looking at teams that have, like, a quarterback battle going on, you see, like, who organizes the receivers for the trip. But you know what? How much more effective would that be if you also invited your cornerbacks and maybe your safeties? And if you do that, hey, you know what? Why don't we just bring some offensive linemen? How about we just do an OTA?
Ross is going to try and get to Russell's DMs. Like, hey, you know what would be really great is if we saw your offensive line in those drills too.
Yeah, right? I mean, like, what if you like, but at least a cornerback. I mean, especially this year, wouldn't it be great if the cornerbacks we have right now got some extra work trying to defend, like, Tyler Lockett and Metcalf? Getting to work against them in practice would probably help.
Yeah.
Some of them don't know the our step move at the beginning, Pete Carroll's steps. Although the guy they brought in from San Francisco, apparently he's really good at it. So,
yes.
So we'll see. But I just think, hey, Russ, next year, like, at least bring the DBs with you too. I mean, maybe not Amadi because his name is Ugo, but everybody else is cool.
All right. Well, let's move along to our final topic. Topic number 4. Zeb, I need to know which offseason move will help the Seahawks defend their NFC West title. There's addition by subtraction. There's addition by addition. There's trades. What is the move you think that the Seahawks made anywhere on the team that is going to help them secure a back-to-back NFC West title?
I think it is a combination of bringing back Chris Carson and a commitment to the return of the running game. I don't think there's any valid argument that Russell doesn't thrive when he has a good running game. It makes him better. So I think that's probably, assuming Chris can stay healthy, which he hasn't really been able to do very much, but he brings that toughness. I think it's important that we set that tone on offense, and I think it's a big reason why we fell apart last year. Even though the running game wasn't bad last year, but I think that commitment, the way we did things when we had beast mode here. Not that he's not Marshawn, but he's not that far off either, and I think he can bring that kind of toughness. And I think it's important because we won the division last year, but we I don't know. That didn't feel like we won the division last year.
It felt like it until, like, our early departure of the playoffs.
Well, I don't know. That last half of the season, I know that we talked about this. I know, Sam, you mentioned how we were playing these really tough defenses, but when we got into the playoffs, we just fell apart. That you could just tell that the team wasn't. It just didn't have that strong core. It just didn't feel right. And
you know what I thought we played like? I thought we looked like a Mike Holmgren team. We got punched in the mouth and we just kind of collapsed. Right.
I think a return to that toughness. We got to be the ones doing the punching. I think that's very important. So, hopefully Chris can stay healthy, and I think he's got a pretty good squad of backups there to help him with it. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Very nice. Ross, what about you? What's the offseason move that's going to help us defend this NFC West? Because let's be clear, the NFC West has gotten better across the board, which really sucks for us, but it has to be the best division on paper again.
I agree, but I disagree. Like, I feel like the Rams got better, but at the same time, I feel that Matt Stafford will never get you a Super Bowl. So I feel bad in the fact that the Rams got better quarterback, but I feel better in the fact that I also feel like they limited themselves. I don't think they brought in like somebody they're not sure what his ceiling is. I don't think every quarterback, I don't think every coach can win the Super Bowl, and I don't think Matt Stafford is. Now I know he didn't have a great situation with the Lions, but Peyton Manning, no matter what, was always going to be a winner, right? I don't think Matt Stafford is even Andrew Luck. So, anyway, as far as this answer to this question, for the first time in 6 years, I'm going to reserve my right to go last. You're going to answer first because I have a weird answer.
All right, well, so that's cool. This is an uncommon thing. I usually wait to hear your guys' thoughts and steal from you.
Yeah,
but
I'm opting out first time in 6 years.
I think the offseason move, it's a little bit what Zeb already said with Chris Carson, but I'm going to actually break it down to Gabe Jackson. I think Gabe Jackson and the commitment the Seahawks have made to the offensive line is going to be a huge thing, and it's the fact that they are going to address one of their biggest weaknesses, which is their interior offensive line. Re-signing Ethan Posick, trading for Gabe Jackson. While Ethan Posick is an okay starter, he looks like garbage against the Rams, which, anyone against Aaron Donald is going to look like garbage. But I think if Ethan Posick is your backup because you can try and draft a starting center, maybe for the future, and Ethan gives way halfway through the year, that's what I feel is going to really separate this team. Because if we have a strong point of attack on our offensive line, I think that makes things so much easier for a guy like Chris Carson. So rather than taking the first hit at the line, maybe he takes the first hit in the linebackers, and then he gets to break through, and then he gets to go one-on-one against a safety or a corner who he will have a clear advantage over. So my personal feeling is addressing that interior offensive line, starting with trading for Gabe Jackson and re-signing Ethan Posick, who doesn't even have to be our starter. I think that is what is going to help Seattle to defend, because I feel that the defense, they're bringing back mostly the same thing. I think losing Jaren Reid's a loss because he's one of those guys that does a lot of the dirty work as a defensive tackle. But they brought in Hyder. He looks like a guy that can play inside and outside. He was second. Did he lead the Niners in sacks last year?
I don't know.
He was top 2 in sacks. He might have. I think he actually did lead. I think he had 8.5 sacks last year, for a really subpar, for them normally, Niners defense. So I'm looking at that interior offensive line as being the offseason move that is going to help the Seahawks defend their NFC West title.
Oh, he was their best by a lot. He had 8.5. The next guy had 3.5.
Yeah. So, and he was dirt cheap for the Seahawks. I think it's a quality signing. I'm really excited for a lot of the moves they made. We didn't have time to talk about all of them, but I think Gabe Jackson and Ethan Posick are the moves that's going to help Seattle defend the NFC West. All right, Ross. I went second. Now it's your turn.
Look at Jaren Reid.
Ooh, that is a weird one. Oh, we didn't even get to talk about him.
So Jaren Reid, letting him go actually makes our team way better. Okay, there's a little bit of question mark still defensive tackle, but the money saved there lets them sign Dunlap and 2 or 3 other players. They're all going to contribute. Like they, I had.
But technically, they cut Reid after they'd signed Dunlap, correct?
Yes, but still, like the money they saved there adds. I mean, like you can't look in necessarily chronological order because it's all like
right.
Yeah, I mean it's the total sum, right?
Yes.
By cutting that, they were allowed. They lose that one good player who's maybe not that good. He only got sacks once they brought in Dunlap, so that kind of makes me think that anybody could have got those sacks if Dunlap was playing as well. So you lose Reid, but it opened up so much more money, and they made such good bargain moves that they brought in a bunch of other players for the same amount of money that are either as good or better, like 3 players. So that's my move. That's the move that actually solidifies, that makes the defensive line, in my opinion, the best line we've had since we went to the Super Bowl.
I find it hard to argue with that because I think this has been one of the most impressive off seasons that Pete and John have had. Knowing how strapped for cash they were, releasing Carlos Dunlap, signing him back for a deal cheaper, and then bringing in Hyder Jr., re-signing Poona Ford. Didn't they also bring back someone else? Was it Al Woods that they've brought back?
Yep, Al Woods is back.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean,
Alden Smith. We'll see how that goes, but
I mean, yeah, we're not even counting Alden Smith. So yeah, I feel like on the defensive side, and not to also add the fact that they added 3 corners for dirt cheap as well, which is like still even less than half the cost that Shaquille Griffin signed for in Jacksonville. Hard to argue with these Moneyball type moves. Now, obviously, the players still have to perform. But I think Jaren Reid's actually a good point because it's kind of like it's that subtraction by addition or addition by subtraction.
I mean, Hyder plus Smith plus Woods, right
and
there,
Dunlap,
and well, just those 2 though. That's already cheaper than Reid. So there you go. Cool. I'll take that.
Pretty solid. Hard to argue with your logic.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go last because it's a little bit weird. It's kind of inverting the question, but
okay. Well, that's good because now we're going to make it a it's kind of a redundant question, but it's in our predictions. So we finish our topics. We're going to jump into predictions. Ross, I'm going to hit you up first. Which new player will have the biggest impact? So you have to talk about someone that has been added to the team.
Gosh, I wish you could do offense and defense.
Do it.
What's the new cornerback from San Francisco's name?
Aquila?
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, that guy. I want it to be him, and if I haven't to choose one on defense, I'm hoping it's him. I've heard good things. So, but it's a borderline reclamation product, which don't usually work out, but has worked out occasionally before. The easy answer for me is Everett. I think Everett is really going to have I think he's really going to have a good place. Between the new play calling and his unique abilities and him, I mean, Shane comes over and it's the one guy he didn't okay, great, but I also want us to trade for this guy or get this other. There's one Ram he really, really wanted, and that's the one he wanted. And that says a lot to me. So I'm going to Everett.
All right, fair enough. Zeb, who's the one player that's going to help make the biggest impact?
I'm going to steal your answer from the last topic and say Gabe Jackson.
Guys, stealing my thunder. All right, so Akela Weatherspoon is on the table, but Ross decided to go with Gerald Everett. Zeb steals Gabe Jackson from my previous topic. That doesn't give me a lot of options here. So I guess I'll go Kerry Harder Jr. I'm actually really excited about him. I looked at Top Billin, Murph Baldwin on YouTube. He had a video about Top Billin, Kerry Harder Jr. His tape looks amazing, and he's doing it against the Rams, which is even better because that's the team we need to see the most success with. I think for next year, and that's subtraction for San Francisco. I'm going to go with Kerry Hyder Jr. He looks like a guy that can play inside and outside, which is a Michael Bennett-like-esque player, and maybe that helps LJ Collier show that he was worth the first-round pick. So that's my answer.
That's a really good answer as well, I think.
Ross, yes or no? Is KJ coming back?
Man, 3 weeks ago I said yes. 2 weeks ago I said no. I feel like he's going to be a little bit bitter. I feel like he just put his best season as a pro and expected to get paid. Yeah, and he's not. Yeah, he'll come back eventually.
All right, Zeb.
Yeah, I think at this point, no news is good news when it comes to KJ Wright. He'll be back. Come home, KJ.
Come home, KJ. I'm with you guys. I think that all signs point to Seattle offering him the best place to come back to, and seeing KJ and Bobby would just feels so natural. And I think KJ still got it. Ross, is Richard Sherman going to come back?
No.
Zeb?
No.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that the fact that Sherman even says that he'd be willing to come back to Seattle is a very positive mood. It shows that Pete was a little bit more correct than Sherman was. But yeah, I think he's more leveraging his signing opportunity. He's already said, so look, I'm not expecting to get signed until after the draft. Seattle's already signed 3 new corners. Akila Witherspoon, Pierre Serrier, and then they got Demarius Randall, who's played with Green Bay for a long time. He was a first-round draft pick as well. And they still have a bunch of guys on the roster, DJ Reed and Trey Flowers, so I don't know if they really need another corner. Ross, are the Seahawks going to franchise or extend Jamal Adams?
Is this an either-or question, or is it a yes or no question?
It's if you're going to pick one, which is more likely to happen first, an extension or the franchise tag?
Franchise.
Fair enough.
Oh, no, I don't like either.
Yeah.
Zeb, what about you?
It's tough because, like, I don't love the idea of paying our safety $20 million a year or whatever it's going to be, but
It's
at the
13.
same time, like,
It's 10 this year, but he's already signed for I think 9, so it's $13 million is the expected franchise tag for 20.
right? No, I'm saying if we were to extend him, that number's going to jump up, right?
No, because the cap, even with the cap going up, it's based upon safety salaries. So I think it's like top 5 safety salaries, and they're expecting to be about 13 in 2022.
Right, for the franchise tag.
Correct.
But I'm talking about an extended and giving him a new contract.
A new contract, though, is not necessarily going to be that the year is $20 million. He might get a $20 million signing bonus, but his yearly cap hit will not be $20 million in the first year.
Okay, well, basically what I'm saying is I don't want to pay $20 million a year for him, but at the same time, I think that what we gave up to get him, it's going to be disappointing if he leaves early, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think they're going to get an extension worked out.
I think that's probably right. I think what will happen, though, is because we don't know what the cap requirements are, I think they're going to tell him, look, we're up against the cap, we're going to franchise you, and then we're going to try and work out a deal once we know what the cap is, and they're going to say, like, we're going to extend you.
He's signed for this year, right?
Yeah, he it's a 5th-year option is what he signed, because he's a first-round
And
player.
then when do we have to sign an extension by? At some point, like, you can't sign them.
So with the franchise tag, depending on which one you sign them to, exclusive or non-exclusive, you have a small window kind of before off-season like really kicks into gear with free agency to sign them to an extension. If you can't sign anything, you have to wait until almost the off-season, which you can franchise them again at a much higher rate, or you let them walk and then you sign them. So same thing happens. You can franchise tag them and then you get that window to negotiate. But if you don't come to a deal, then they're locked into that franchise tag, and then you have to wait until next offseason.
I feel like when we get to August, we're going to hear about an extension.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I think they're kind of up against the cap, so it'll be interesting to see what they could work out.
They're up against the cap, but I feel like there's a deal that's already been done that they haven't actually announced. Because it feels like, for a short time, it felt like they were actually over the cap.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, but they're not allowed to be, I guess you are right now allowed to be over. You had to be under. Yeah, I feel like they've got like a deal probably with like Wilson, like if something comes up, we're just going to change it. Because like Wilson's, they don't even have to ask him.
Right. They just give him more money up front.
Right. So I don't think they want to do that, but I think that's sort of like the given that if they have to, they'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't really think that that's a huge pressure as far as Adams. It just, like Zeb said, you gave up so much to get him. You'd think. At the same time, you have to be like, not make a bad deal for yourself because it's a sunk cost. That's a big fallacy that people get into.
Right.
Oh, well, I gave up so much for him.
Exactly.
But
that's why it sucks.
You got an all-pro out of him. He set the record for sacks by a safety. I mean, it's not the end of the trade yet. We're not seeing the end of his career, but I'm pretty happy with it so far.
I mean, we gave up like most players. I'm always like, I mean, even when it was Clowney, I was just like, let him go and get the complimentary supplementary pick or whatever.
Yeah, but then Clowney didn't sign until right before the season started, so we didn't get anything.
Exactly. And then with this, it's even worse because it's 2 number 1s and 2 number 3s. Like the compensatory pick doesn't really compensate for that.
Yeah.
You don't get anywhere near back. Like a Clown is like, oh, we get a 1-year rental plus get a third. I was assuming, but then he doesn't sign forever just to spite us.
And then he got injured, and he's now playing for Cleveland for $10 million. What a dumb move! You're not going to. He bet on himself. That's what it is, right?
But that's the worst place to go to do that. We were probably the way better choice.
Yeah, but he's going to play again. He's going to play opposite a really good defensive end in Cleveland. So maybe that's what he needs.
But that's what I'm saying. Like the linebackers in Cleveland don't get the sacks. He's going to be in coverage more than he thinks.
We'll see. Idiot. All right, final prediction, Ross. On paper, is this team better than the 2020 Seahawks?
24-17. Oh, sorry. I usually our last predictions to score. Is we better? Are we better? Are we better? I think we're better. I think we have a better offensive coordinator. I think our defensive coordinator grew as a person and as a coordinator last year. I think the team as a whole sort of has a bunch of chips on the shoulders right now. Like everybody thinks we can't make it past the first round of the playoffs. We can't, because I think that's a bunch of garbage. I don't think it's like, oh, they're not good enough to do that. I think like get to the playoffs, it's 50-50 kind of chance. It's just statistical garbage. I mean, like it doesn't mean anything. Like it's not like baseball. You're playing best of 7 series, and every time you're getting wiped out, you come in with a slightly bad game plan, or you make a bad catch, you have a fumble here or there, and all of a sudden you lose the game. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. People act like there was no way to beat the Rams. Like we beat them half the time in the regular season, right? I mean, it felt awful because we obviously didn't come in prepared for whatever reason. Maybe we were just too beat up and tired, but I don't know. Anyway, we're better.
All right.
Hashtag trigger.
Right? Yeah.
All right, Zeb. On paper, this team better than 2020?
If nothing else, but in the name of my eternal optimism, yes.
Yeah, I'm both with you guys. Obviously, that makes us all sound like a bunch of homers, but whatever. We're the Hawkscast podcast. We're not like the anti-Hawks podcast. Yeah, I think this team is better on paper. We're not even done with the offseason yet. We could still sign another free agent. We have 3 picks in this draft, which is insane to think about, but something will happen, and I'm excited for this team. I'm excited to see what will happen. A lot of drama, a lot of things can change. But that is our episode 601, our 6th season of the Hawkscast podcast. Gentlemen, let's do some shout-outs.
Oh.
Shout out to the gal across the street who likes to change her clothes in front of the window.
We've been asking Zeb for picks, but he's a gentleman, so he won't oblige.
I would never violate this young woman's privacy like that.
That's why you've informed her that she can be seen, right?
Oh, she knows.
Okay. I guess I'm shouting out to all the people who worked so hard on getting the vaccine done so fast, especially the ones that actually work well. Shout out to Biden, who I think has kind of stepped up as a president way better than I expected. I expected him to just be a placeholder, and he's actually pretty proactive. And shout out to Yumi for being awesome and letting me use her room today to do the podcast in.
Thank you.
And shout out to Tony, who I kicked ass against in X-Wing the other day.
Ooh, I need to see some clips or highlights of that.
It's one of those things that was kind of fluky. You guess wrong one time, your ship ends up in the wrong spot, gets blown up, and now you're kind of screwed. But
sounds like a Seahawks offense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was pure luck, but it was pretty awesome.
Shout out to all the people on Hawkscast.net. It's our new website. It's the home of our podcast. Please check it out when you have a chance. A lot of great topics, a lot of great people commenting. It's brand new. It's a lot of fun. We're a work in progress, so shout out to all the developers that have helped us: Felipe, Colin, Rena, Ross. They've been doing a lot of work. Shout out to Acer, 1240. Shout out to Tony. Check us out at hawkscast.net. Go to us on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. We're the Hawkscast Podcast. We're so happy to be back for year 6. We'll be back next week for the pre-draft, and then we'll do another one for the post-draft, and maybe we'll do a special one after that. But I'm Sam. With me, as always, is Zeb and Ross, and we wish you a very strong Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
The Hawks.